Hey, good to see you again. I've got a lot to tell you, so I'm going to take a sip of water, if you don't mind. I hope you do the same. Because I thought today I'd share something personal with you. So if you're only interested in all things voiceover, this is probably the time to find something else to watch. Although what I'm about to say does impact how I do my job, and I think there's a message in my story anyone could benefit from. As you may know, I just took part in the One Voice Conference UK edition, and one of my favorite parts is always the online social. Being in Vermont, it gives me a chance to connect with people who are mostly in the United Kingdom, many of whom read my blog and follow me on Instagram and Facebook at NetherVoice. Quite a few people I spoke to knew about my stroke some 5 years ago and my recent visit to the hospital, so they wanted to know how I was doing, particularly if and how my stroke impacts my everyday life. And the comment I got most of the time was, if I didn't know you had a stroke, I wouldn't be able to tell. I take that as a compliment. It also means that I've become pretty good at camouflaging the way my stroke is affecting my life. But before I tell you about that, you need to know that I'm by no means a typical stroke survivor. Depending on which part of the brain and how many cells were impacted, strokes can be completely debilitating or can only cause minor damage, and that's why they say different strokes for different folks. I'm one of the lucky ones. I am still able to lead a quote-unquote normal life with certain limitations. Even though our grey cells never grow back, the brain continues to make new connections. It's called neuroplasticity, and I'm proof that this is real. Right after my stroke, I couldn't walk or talk, and it took a lot of therapy to get back to where I am today. I had to learn to ask for and accept help. And I had to make peace with the fact that I would never be the strong and independent person I used to be. To give you an example, some of my memories seem to have been erased. My memorization skills as a whole have suffered a blow, and I find it hard to hold on to information. But thank goodness voiceovers can just read their scripts instead of having to learn them by heart. So if you'd follow me around during the day, you would notice that I'm forgetful. When my wife asks me to do a certain chore and I don't do it immediately, chances are that I will go about my day and forget about it. Forget about it. It's not that I don't want to remember, it's just that information does not stick. There's no glue. A consequence of this is how I experience time. Since my stroke, I live mostly in the moment. That may seem blissful, and it really is. And it often seems like I am perpetually daydreaming. That's how it feels. I'm daydreaming. The downside is that I have trouble focusing. The future doesn't seem that important to me, which is a pain when you're planning. I literally live being totally absorbed in what I'm doing at the moment. Being forgetful is also dangerous. More than once have I heated some milk on the stove and walked away, not remembering what I was doing, and my wife had to run up the stairs because something was burning, and yes, I could have burned our house down at least twice since we started living here. I can also cross the road without looking. This means I can't be trusted on my own in these situations. I also can't be trusted behind the wheel of a car anymore. I'm too absent-minded and I get easily overwhelmed by external stimuli my brain can't process. Here's something that makes this even more of a risk: my lack of impulse control. I don't think ahead. I do not care about the consequences. I will say something without thinking, and what comes out of my mouth may be undiplomatic or even hurtful. Lack of impulse control also affects the way I eat. Since my stroke, I've gained weight because I literally keep eating until my plate is empty. It also influences the way I handle money. As you can imagine, sellers love someone without impulse control. I can't make any financial decisions without running it by my wife. At times this makes me resentful, but I know it's in my best interest. I realize these are all very immature and irrational responses. But perhaps this stroke did cause some age regression, resulting in adolescent behavior. Some days I feel I'm my carefree 18-year-old again. Carefree is probably a good word to describe my state because I feel fearless. The worst thing that could happen to me has happened to me, so there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. I feel like I live on borrowed time. Every day is gravy. The only fear I feel is for other people like my wife. I want her to be safe. Now, I don't want to tire you with more sad symptoms, but quickly, the stroke affected my eyesight and my sense of balance. The left side of my body is definitely weaker than my right side. My left hand, for instance, can't hold on to anything anymore. I also received the gift of misophonia, which means extreme sensitivity to certain sounds that can set off the fight or flight response. Mouth noises are big triggers for me. But you know what? In spite of all these inconveniences, I'm happy to be alive. I think there's a reason why I didn't die, and one of those reasons might be to tell people about my stroke experience. It happened because my irregular and fast-beating heart decided to send a blood clot to my brain, so if you have a heart like that, get it checked. When it happened, I was in my unventilated, soundproof vocal booth, and the lack of oxygen didn't help. So make sure to get some fresh air into your studio. And lastly, my sedentary lifestyle didn't do me any favors either. If you're still watching this video, get off your behind and start moving, please. Your life may depend on it. So if at any time in the past I've done something stupid or said something that wasn't very nice, you now know where that came from. I've been broken and put back together again, but I'll never be the same. The reason I like writing so much is because I can take the time to think things over and edit myself. But every now and then, I impulsively post something and I forget about it. Overall, I love living in the moment, but I wouldn't be able to do it without the help of my wife, who keeps me grounded. She's my rock, my anchor, and my love. Stroke is one of the leading causes of death in the United States and England and Europe. And without realizing it, you may know someone who has had a stroke and is living with the invisible consequences. If anything, I hope my story has given you some idea of what that's like. Empathy starts with understanding. And if there's one thing this world needs, it is more empathy. Thanks for listening and thanks for caring. I'm so glad you and I are connected.